Okay, let's do bookshelf tour, not library tour. Bookshelf tour, part two. We got up through Kathy Acker, and we'll go on to A's. I was going to say we're going to start off with Anthony, but let's start off with the easier one, which is my Douglas Adams. Douglas Adams of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, of his Dirk Gently books, and his looks like what I've got is his. Oh yeah, this is basically the stuff they found on Douglas Adams' hard drive and various other things after his untimely death, which is more of a kind of an interest thing. And then I think later they got a okay dude to try and do a sequel to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, which was somebody else playing in Douglas Adams' sandbox, which kind of was beside the point. It was Douglas Adams' mind that we were interested in, and so that went away. I really enjoy the Dirk Gently books as well. They are fun. They are their own. They're their own series. They can stand on their own. Uh, yes, and next we come to my childhood shame, which is a couple of Piers Anthony books. I read Piers Anthony in the 80s as a young teen guy, and really enjoyed them. Probably unironically enjoyed them. Collected his much more hardcore kind of biography of a tyrant books, which were very kind of X-rated books. Piers Anthony is probably what the kids today would call problematic. Uh, Not in that fact that he's an inveterate punster, but that basically there's a lot. It's basically kind of softcore porn for teens. Is probably how I would put it. I picked up these just to kind of just because like they were a part of that time, part of my childhood, and I have to say I still enjoy them, even though they are terribly sexist books. His first one, Spell for a Chameleon, I think is I best remember for a scene where the male hero, because it is a male hero, is locked in a in a jail and can stick his hand through, and him touching soft female bits, and it's sort of that level of things. Yeah, they can be they are they're definitely books of the 80s with views of women that's probably even older, and unfortunately is probably a part of my psychology now, which is like, be careful, kid, be careful. These are probably the most damaging books to my brain of books the books that I read. Next, we've got Lois McMaster Bujol. Her Miles Verkosian series, which I've enjoyed the ones I've read. I haven't read them all. I really enjoyed actually the one that was because these are I don't even know where they are. I may have gotten rid of the other ones. They started off with the parents. And them getting together and their sort of romance, which was actually really good in itself. Miles himself is a complete shit, who I'm assuming over the course of these books kind of learns he's a smart shit. Will learn his lessons and become a better person. I don't know, better person, but it's him traveling through his adventures, very science fiction adventures. I've also got one of her fantasy books, Paladin of Souls, which I haven't started yet. As with all these things, like I think the Miles books, this is like a collection of the science fiction books are like this is Miles Mystery and Mayhem, and I think it is it's collects one, two, three. This is three novels, and then of course you go to fantasy, and that's an entire novel. So it's that you get that fantasy bulge. I'll pick that up later. Next thing we've got Jorge Luis Borges. Jorge Luis Borges. His Ficciones, which is probably what he's best known for in his fictions. Very kind of intellectual, kind of the each story kind of opens up into a more gigantic story. I've also got Everything and Nothing, which I have even no idea exactly what the hell it is. Um, Celebrating the Celebrating the centennial of his birth, Everything and Nothing compiles the finest fiction by Luis Jorge. By Jorge. We'll just say Jorge. Next is Empire of the Sun by J.G. Ballard. Science fiction dude, gone, made good. This was made into a movie, which I've never seen. I haven't actually read the book yet. I've read a lot of his science fiction, which is how I know him. And I really enjoy his very kind of literary 70s science fiction. So at some point, I'll have to pick that up. I think it's all about his experiences as a kid in World War II. I believe it's rooted in his author's own disturbing experience of war in our time, which I believe was World War II. He is separated from his parents in a world at war. To survive, he must find a strength greater than all the events that surround him, which definitely sounds like why this is probably the movie tie-in cover of it. We've got The Hounds. We see Further Adventures of Eric John Stark, The Hounds of Scath by Leigh Brackett. Leigh Brackett, who at least did one of the early drafts of Star Wars, and worked in Hollywood. Also did fantasy. I picked this up as just like, oh, I should try that, and I've not tried that yet. God, we're gonna get so many of these books. The Loser by Thomas Bernhard, which is supposedly a really, really hard book to read. Bernhard writes like a sacred monster. He is a remarkable literary performer, a man who goes to extremes in ways that vivify our senses of human possibilities, however destructive, says the Wall Street Journal. And yeah, I think it's one of those books I was like, wow, I should read that. And then I got it, and I'm terribly intimidated by it. And then we get Octavia Butler, which I'm not quite sure where all the rest of my Octavia Butler is. I had a whole bunch of this in the proper mass market whitewash paperbacks thing. A great black science fiction writer, really tough, really kind of hard, cold voice, which I love in her works. Yeah, definitely worth checking out. Actually, this is probably my least, I don't care about. It's like short stories by her. I actually much more enjoy her novels. A Fine and Private Place, Peter S. Beagle, who I've always meant to get to, which I haven't yet. Stand on Zanzibar, something I've heard a lot about. I think, oh, I should pick that up and then get to it, and I've never got to it. Now, you'd think I'd say, oh, I got this and I never read it. Haha! I actually did read this. Roberto Burle, 2666, which is the monstrous regime of men over women. It might be a bro dude lit book, but it's also in especially the exhaustive chapter of the murdering of women, specifically here on the kind of the border between Mexico and the U.S., is a terrifying kind of descent into kind of a hellscape, which this is religious, but also kind of hellish cover actually kind of gives you an idea of that. And I guess you probably have like a Madonna, I'm sure a Madonna on the front bleeding, which kind of gives you an idea of the work. It's one of those ones actually I would reread. I probably will reread at some point. I've got here, let's get the rest of him out of the way. We've got actually a short work by him, By Night in Chile, which I cannot even, I've read, I think it's like about kind of like a dictatorship thing. During the course of a single night, a Chilean priest who is a member of Opus Dei, a literary critic, and a mediocre poet, relives some of the critical events of his life. He believes he is dying, and however delirious, how feverish, delirious various characters, both real and imaginary, appear at icy moments. Actually, maybe I haven't read that yet. Savage Detectives, which is definitely about kind of the detectives of the novel thing are kind of they're the poets. They're very savage detectives. Yeah, it's funny. I really enjoyed the books. Now could be a case made that I can't remember them very well, which I don't know. That probably says more about me than it says about the books. Beckett, his the Beckett trilogy of Malone Dies, and The Unnameable, another book I've been meaning to get to because, you know, it's Beckett. Oh, a little bit of BC history. George Bowering's Bowering's BC, a swashbuckling history, which probably means it's completely bullshit history, done by one of our kind of more tricksterish poets in BC. But at least it's written by somebody who might actually have a storytelling bone in their body, which a lot of times I find, especially with local histories, it's hard to find those storytellers. You're finding people who are just kind of scraping up the info, which, you know, Lord love them, but that's the thing. I got a little bit of Edgar Rice Burroughs. I'm actually reading the Barsoomian novels at the moment, and this is Savage Pellucidar, which I believe is Hollow Earth stuff, like beneath the Earth's surface. Two explorers from Earth's surface had carved themselves an empire at the Earth's core, Pellucidar. Yes, and we have one of these wonderful covers, wonderful naked lady covers with savage fang beasts, which is, you know, awesome pulpness, which Edgar Rice Burroughs, writing at, like, you know, kind of at least starting at like the turn of the century of the 19th century, is definitely one of the great grandfathers of the whole pulp tradition. Then we have a couple of books, the Drôle Stories by Henri de Balzac. I did not get along with Cousin Bet. Cousin Pons I got on a bit better with. I might actually read some of these short stories and see if maybe taking Balzac in short doses, his certain kind of extreme conservative Roman Catholic, we're all damned, maybe I can take that better in short chunks. I guess I shall see if I can gird myself to it. He's definitely, news alert, Balzac is probably can write a sentence. So even when he's translated into English that a dull-eared like I can read. So yes, we're gonna stop there. That is one actual shelf done. Only took me 2 videos and 20 or 30 minutes to do. Yeah, that's about it. We'll move on. I'll probably skip all my skip the random DVD collection. More random DVDs with all my penguins pulled out because I did a penguin tag a while ago. But God, yeah, and there's Cousin Bet and Cousin Pons, which I did have issues with. I guess they can go back up here in their safety. Oh God, I might even have more. Yeah, I've got Harlot High and Low. I've got Lost Illusions. I've got a lot of Balzac. You see, that's the thing, is like I read one Balzac in university, really loved it, and then bought a lot more, and then slammed right into Cousin Bet just recently in this last year, actually. I guess I slammed into it. So that's fun. All right, I am just blathering. More book tours later, probably.